Tee Higgins, franchise tagged by the Cincinnati Bengals. He will get $26 million, fully guaranteed money this year, or a team can sign him. And if the Bengals don't match that higher offer, then they have to give up draft pick compensation at a very high price. Not worth it, in my opinion, for a Tee Higgins. It could be 2 firsts for any wide receiver of that matter. But here's the thing, and I'm the one included, where we all have to move forward. Elite wide receivers don't hit the open market. Now, I said the Patriots should go after and trade for a Tee Higgins before last season. Get him in the building. You can pay him. Give him an extension middle of the season. You get ahead. Didn't happen. Here's a reality. Patriots aren't going to get Tee Higgins. Here's the other reality. This wide receiver free agency class isn't that great. So where do they go next? Well, let's look at it. There's Chris Godwin, 29 years old. Next season, he will be. Coming off a dislocated ankle, the same leg where he tore his ACL. He would be a good one if healthy. I just don't trust him coming off that injury. I think he ends up staying anyway, signing an extension with the Buccaneers. Amari Cooper, he'll be 31. He's regressed. Stephon Diggs, he'll be 32. Torn ACL. DeAndre Hopkins, he's 33 years old and only played 50% of the snaps for the Chiefs when he was in Kansas City. That, along with his age, that's a red flag for me. Hollywood Brown, he was productive when healthy for the Chiefs. He'll be 28, but how healthy will he be? And look back at just how he got to Kansas City. He was traded to Arizona for a first-round pick, and then Arizona let him walk into free agency. When any receivers hit free agency, you have to ask why, because there's a reason a team is letting him walk for free. Darius Slayton, he was my guy as a wide receiver 2. In this current room, he'd be the wide receiver 1. He'd be a good building block, 28 chain mover, big body. He'd be good. You'd have to pay around 16, maybe 18 million a year, but I think worth it as a investment. Deontay Johnson, just 29. He goes against everything that Mike Vrabel's been preaching. What about the guys you can trade for? There's Tyreek Hill. He missed the playoffs with the Dolphins, said, I'm out. I don't want to be here anymore. And then he apologized and said, never mind, I want to stay. He's still an elite receiver. You'd have to trade with the Dolphins for him. But again, I don't think he'd fit in Vrabel's locker room. And I don't want any part of him as he's approaching 30 and he's actually getting slower on the field. Deebo Samuel, he's had over 420 touches the last 4 seasons. And it's not normal wide receiver touches. It's running back carries and catches as a guy that's great after the catch. He is much older than what he is because of the blows to his body he sustained. Cooper Kupp, you'd have to give up draft assets, and you'd have to pay him $29, $27 million a year as a cap hit. If he restructures and you could trade a 4th for him, I'd be up for it, but it would have to be perfect scenario. DK Metcalf, we'll get to that in just a second. Now, they're the guys that could get cut and become free agents. Davante Adams, 1 year, prove-it deal. I know you're saying Davante Adams, but he didn't stink with the Jets. He had 850 receiving yards for the New York Jets, where that entire offense was a nightmare. 7 touchdowns, 12 yards per catch. Overall in the season, 85 receptions, 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. But how would he be in that locker room? You're establishing culture. How would he work with Josh McDaniels? I don't know. Tyler Lockett, with JSN emerging, he kind of cut Lockett's production in half. But that's an old wide receiver 2 at best, and I don't think it'd be worth it in the building blocks. Then there's the draft. And that's where it really is the real deal. Good wide receivers don't hit the open market. And you're going, but how do teams get such elite wide receiving rooms? Look at the Vikings. 2020, Justin Jefferson in the 1st round. 2022, they took Jalen Naylor in the 6th. He had 6 receiving touchdowns this past season, product of the system. 2023, Jordan Addison with a 1st round pick. The Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, a 4th rounder. Jameson Williams, a 1st. The Rams, Cooper Kupp was a 3rd round pick in 2017. Tutu Atwell was a 2nd round pick in 2021. Puka Nacua was a 5th round pick in 2023. And they just took Jordan Whittington as well. Those are guys that will have multiple contracts under the Rams. And look at Kupp, rookie deal. 3-year deal worth $15 million a year. That's when he had his amazing 2021 season. Then he got paid and didn't work out. The Bengals, Tee Higgins, 2nd round pick in 2020. Jamar Chase, top 5 pick in 2021. Andre Yosivach in 2023, 6th round pick, and that was a guy that replaced Tyler Boyd. The Seahawks, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, JSN, all drafted. Again, we'll get to DK. Finally, the 49ers took Debo in 2019, traded a 1st for Brandon Ayuk in 2020, drafted Ricky Pearsall in the 1st round. While they still have Brandon Ayuk, they're drafting his successor in Ricky Pearsall. But then the Eagles, they just won the Super Bowl. Well, yes, they traded for A.J. Brown, but that was an extra first they got from the draft prior. They whiffed on Jalen Reagor, corrected themselves with Davante Smith, traded for A.J. Brown. Ended the day, the Eagles, 8 of their 11 offensive starters in the Super Bowl, they drafted. And look at the history of wide receivers that were traded for in the NFL. Stephon Diggs at 27 demanded a first. Same thing with Tyreek Hill at 28 demanded a first. So that's what ties it in. You could trade for DK Metcalf. He's 28 years old. He's not as elite as a Stephon Diggs or Tyreek Hill. That's fine. You give up a second for him and maybe a fourth and maybe a future third. You could accrue that by trading back from 4. Or better yet, you won't find a better player in the second round than DK Metcalf. He's a real deal. 4-year deal, 3 years matter, $80 million guaranteed total, $50 million at signing. He'll love Massachusetts of then. There's the draft. You can draft and trade, draft and sign.